I worked just shy of 40 years, but my pension still wasn't going to be enough for us. So when he called out of the blue, offering a free pension review, I was all ears. He spoke professionally about investments. He seemed a really decent guy. Just shy of 40 years pension. He took all of it.
Seriously popular.
Welcome to Alas Vine and Hitchens. I'm Sarah Vine, and he is Peter Hitchens.
I am.
And this week, Peter will be asking when new legislation to curb the plague of e-bikes on our streets will finally come into effect. And I want to know why parents aren't vaccinating their children against measles. We will be back after this.
Get a free bet when you bet £5 every week of the Premier League season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction from Ladbrokes. And for extra Ladisfaction, here's the T's and C's Garage Style.
18 plus, 1st of September to 24th of May. Opt-in weekly. Selected Premier League markets. Match 1 free bet per week. Values vary. Restrictions and T&Cs apply. Daily odds boosts. T&Cs on ladbrokes.com. Gambleaware.org.
Welcome to Alas Vine and Hitchens. I am Sarah Vine.
And I am Peter Hitchens.
And this week, Peter is kicking off with, is it going to be a rant? A rant about e-bikes?
A rant always seems to me to be an insulting expression, suggesting the person is just shouting and screaming without reason or restraint. So personally, I prefer not to have anything I say or write classified as a rant.
Okay.
Call me sensitive.
Yes, no, fine. I'm sorry. I apologise.
That's okay.
Anyway, tell us about your subject, Peter.
Well, my subject was this. In fact, I had to fight my way through great masses of electric motorcycles this morning to actually park my own proper bicycle because they pile them up against the cycle racks, which were not meant for them at all. And they're extremely heavy and very nasty, and they are becoming a huge plague. And it seems to me that both the major political parties and MPs in general have been completely complacent about this since it began. It's utterly changed, particularly in the big cities, road safety and pavement safety. And the attitude of the authorities towards it has been complacent. They seem to be quite prepared to let it go, and they've invented so-called experiments, such as the one which takes place in my hometown of Oxford, which go on and on forever, during which hire companies can hire out electric scooters and now electric motorbikes as well, all over the city. It's called an experiment, but nobody seems to be taking much in the way of notes, and it never ends. But this allows them to break the law, because the law officially is that you can't ride e-scooters on public highway or on pavements or on parks or on cycle tracks, but they do because they're hire ones, so they're exempt. How on earth the police were ever supposed to enforce a law which said a hired e-scooter was illegal on the road, but a one that you bought at Halford's was not illegal, I do not know. And it seems to me to be designed to drive the law into disrepute. And here we are. And I think the result of this will be that the government will soon say, OK, we're taking off the regulations. We can ride these things everywhere.
Is that what you think they're going to do?
I have my own theory about this.
Presumably the councils get paid.
I have no idea. I can't
these
establish what it is, what the relation is between the scooter companies and local authorities. But what seems to me to be the case is that the government is increasingly aware that it can't afford a bus service much longer in most parts of the country. It's very heavily subsidised and not very much used, and I think it will come to an end. And what they're seeking to do is introduce these machines into the country so that people can actually get about with that public transport, which would be fine if they had no disadvantages.
But also, you can't. There are people who can't ride a bike. You can't ride a bike.
Well, there are such people, but the government doesn't care about them.
Well, no, you can't ride a bicycle if you're a small child. You can't ride a bicycle if you're an old lady with bad knees. You can't ride a bicycle if you've got any sort of disability that's physical, really. I mean, it's not fair.
No, so the general attitude of the government is either get a car or stay at home. And that's been the fundament of our transport policy since about 1955. Get a car or suffer.
Well, yes.
But now they've decided that instead of just getting a car or suffering, you can now get another dangerous, unpleasant motor vehicle and terrorise pedestrians and children with it. And that will be all right too.
The problem, though, Peter, I'm going to argue with you on this one because although I love you dearly, I personally like e-bikes. I use them myself.
I know. I think it's shocking of you.
I do like a Lime bike, and I am.
But why do you like it?
Because it's a very convenient
It's a lazy person's means of transport.
It's very quick and easy, and the way it works is so clever because you can leave them way to your destination.
Clever for whom?
Well,
it's not clever
me,
for all the people who have to navigate around the great piles of scrap metal left on the street.
I ride them very responsibly. I don't bully people. I don't go particularly fast. I don't come out of my lane. I'm a good... So the thing is, like all these things...
Well, I think you're the only person who rides those things who does that.
I don't know.
What happened last Sunday was that the Sunday Telegraph ran a survey of how these things were being left. They even to discover whether the e-bike companies were keeping their promises of keeping them off the streets. They even left one and photographed it there in the middle of a pedestrian crossing on the stripes. And the hire company to which it belonged said, "Oh, that's fine, you can go." Because they don't pay any attention, they don't care, and if when you come into this building, you see them. The whole street is piled up with this hideously painted junk, designed for people with more money than sense to avoid having any exercise.
Well, actually, they're very cheap.
Well, they aren't if you.
But I don't use them for exercise. I use them for getting to A to B, which is slightly different.
Expensive than riding a bicycle.
I don't use them for exercise. That's not why I use them. But it's very handy, for example.
Well, that's a good thing because you won't get any exercise.
If I'm cycling from my house to here, there's a very steep hill, and so it's very nice to have a bit of electrical assistance going up the hill.
Nice for whom?
For me, for my knees. My knees are very happy about this.
It's bad for you.
But what I'm trying to say,
much better if you made the effort and either pushed it up the hill or you rode it up the hill.
What I'm trying to
depriving yourself of an important health benefit. You'll go to a gym and spend money getting the exercise expensively that you would get by riding a bike up a slope.
I've got arthritis in my knees, so there's only a limited amount of cycling that I can do before they start to hurt. So for me, I like to do a bit of cycling. I do have a normal push bike, and I do use that normal push bike. But sometimes, if I've got a lot of shopping and I just want to hop on a Lime bike, it's quite a convenient thing to have, and it's better theoretically than to using the car. But what I would like to say is it's about the people who use these things. Okay, so they're all on the app and stuff. So it should be relatively easy to put some sort of safeguards in place that mean that the person who uses them has to pass some kind of test or has to have a license. You could try.
That is in theory the case.
Improve the regulation around them. The problem
in theory, you're supposed to have a provisional license, for instance. I can't believe.
But that's not checked.
I can't believe that most people. How would it be checked?
Well, you would have to upload it to the Lime app before you were allowed to use it.
You're not supposed to ride them under the age of, I think, 14.
Yeah, no, correct.
And yet the place is full of children riding them perilously at high speed.
So the sensible thing to do would be for the companies to say, right, unless you've uploaded a copy of your license, then you can't, I'm afraid, use this. Of course,
does it cross your mind to wonder why the companies aren't that keen on those restrictions?
Well, because they're obviously
they wouldn't make anything like so much money.
But exactly,
so that's why they don't
assuming
do it.
That they would like
who's going to rely on them to enforce that rule?
Well, the government could enforce that rule. It's a very simple rule to enforce.
With what? With the police?
Well, no, they just have a conversation. It's a licensing issue. You can't just get in a car with no tax or insurance.
Well, you can now.
No, you can't.
You can because the place is full of fake number plates.
Okay, all right, but the point is you're not supposed
because the
to.
Police have stopped working in ways which would once have prevented these things from happening. There's an enormous amount of illegal driving going on.
No, you're correct. No, there always has been a lot of illegal driving.
No, there's much more now.
But theoretically, if you're stopped doing, I mean, there are a lot of.
If you're stopped,
do you know that if you hit
flying saucer might come down on Kensington High Street and cause all the traffic, but it's unlikely. You've got to admit, but slightly less unlikely than a policeman.
Can I tell you something about Lime bikes that perhaps you don't know and are not aware of?
Tell me.
Because I know that you do like to make citizens arrest. I know it's a thing that you like to do.
I do not like to make citizens arrest. This is a complete fabrication.
Is this a terrible rumour that's been put about by someone?
What would I do with someone I arrested?
Well, so if
I did make where would I take them?
But the thing is, if you see someone riding a Lime bike and it's making a clicking noise,
yes, it means it's
illegally
hired. Yeah. So what should you do? Throw yourself in front of it like Emily Davison at the Derby. Oh, you're riding an illegal e-bike. You should be run in. Come on, you know perfectly well. There's no enforcement of laws of that kind, and they can do what they like. And the thing about, if you license something in society, you have to expect that the worst possible use of it will be made by the worst possible people. You could say, right, we're going to license automatic rifles because nice people will never shoot anybody with them. Wouldn't that be stupid? It's the same with e-bikes. We're going to license these very, very heavy pieces of machinery which can, with a few twiddles of electronics, be made to go at 40 miles an hour, which will be ridden on the pavements and in parks and where children go all the time, and we will expect it to be fine.
Yes. Okay.
Then in that case, you will have demonstrated that once upon a time, we had a sort of intelligence test in this country so you could get into a decent school. Now we could have a stupidity test, which would involve believing that. And once you'd passed it and could prove that you were absolutely stupid, you could be excluded from all areas of public life forever.
I think I might have passed the stupidity test.
Well, be careful, is all I can say, because once you've done so, it could be that people might...
Is it multiple choice, the stupidity test? Could you compile one for me and for our listeners? Do you think they'd like
There are so many ways in which it can be. I mean, you just need to watch television and you see people pass it all the time.
But I still don't think that they are necessarily inherently a bad thing.
Well, because they will be used in bad ways, yes, they are. They're bound to be used in bad ways, and they're impossible by their... No, look, what happened in 1894 in this country, there were no motor cars.
Right.
And a man called Hitchens imported the first motor car into this country and was immediately, came out of London docks, stopped and told that he couldn't drive it without a man with a red flag walking in front of him. It's true. Within a year, that law had been repealed, and what happened effectively was there was no speed limit at all.
No.
Which led, as the number of cars increased, to the most appalling carnage by the 1930s. And in the 1930s, we decided enough of this. There will be speed limits, which will be enforced. There will be pedestrian crossings, which will be enforced. And you will have to pass a test to drive a car. And the car will have to have, or motorcycle, will have to have a number plate on it by which you can be identified. Immediately, road safety in this country was transformed. When we introduced electronic bikes and electronic scooters into this country, we actually repealed all those laws for huge numbers of people. You can now ride a motor vehicle of immense power. Some of these things can go very fast indeed. An immense power to be ridden by people who are not licensed, and they don't carry any kind of plates which allow their users to be prosecuted.
So surely that's
so we have basically gone lawless after 80 years of sensibly enforcing intelligent laws to ensure that motor vehicles were responsibly used. We've abandoned that rule and launched onto the streets of our country, on the roads of our country, a constant peril to everybody. And no statistics are being kept by the Department for Transport of specific accidents connected with these vehicles. They're not keeping them. Why is that?
Well, it's funny, actually, you should say that, because my daughter got knocked off her Lime bike at a particularly difficult crossing in Hammersmith, where they've got these sort of slightly mad cycle lanes that go both ways, and a lot of cars don't realise that. So they're very confusing. Anyway, I did an FOI to the local police department to find out how many people had been knocked off their bike at that particular location, not just Lime bikes, but actual bikes, and they came back. I think it was 8. It was a lot of them, but you'd have to do that for all. Because
no national statistics are held. You're told you can try contacting individual police forces. Well, what I might say is good luck with that.
But they should definitely, I think you're correct. The least they should do is to license them and to require the rider to have a license.
Well, but they have to have number plates, otherwise no law can be enforced.
No, quite.
That's why this breakdown is actually infecting cars, because car drivers are beginning to see that lawlessness has taken over on the roads. Why should they have to be tracked when other people are not? Cyclists ride through red lights. E-bikes completely ignore the laws. E-scooters. So more and more drivers are having fake plates made which do not show up on cameras.
Do you think that ordinary cyclists should have licenses and insurance?
No, I think it's to have insurance, but I think it would be completely impractical unless you turn the country into North Korea, which does actually have, and I've observed, number plates on bicycles. Unless you turn the country into North Korea, you couldn't possibly enforce it. And unenforceable laws bring the law into disrepute. I think an awful lot of cyclists should behave an awful lot better, and there should be a lot of prosecutions of cyclists who ride through red lights, particularly pedestrian lights, which is their favourite. And I don't make citizens' arrests, I make citizens' denunciations of other cyclists who do that in front of me. but who are usually, by the way, helmet-wearing, dressed as insects.
Absolutely dressed as insects. That's so true. Often when I'm on my Lime bike or a Lime bike going along at a perfectly sedate speed, I get overtaken by one of these creatures.
Yeah.
They're very aggressive towards you if you're riding a Lime bike. There's now a sort of bizarre hierarchy, and then you get these weird ones that are not anything, they're just privately owned, and they're like little fuzzy black ones.
Shall I explain the reason for the hierarchy? When I first started riding a push bike in London, there were no cycle lanes, just none. There was no provision made for cyclists at all. It was war. And you had to get through the day and survive it because it was so dangerous, and the hostility of drivers towards cyclists was so immense. And then, after years and years of campaigning by all kinds of associations to which I belong, we began to get cycle lanes and to be allowed to use some of the paths through the royal parks. And it suddenly became safe on large stretches of my journey to ride a bike. And then, onto these cycle paths came fast, heavy motor vehicles, totally destroying the whole point of them. It ceased to be safe.
So do you think they should be on the road?
And that's why proper cyclists loathe electric bicycle riders.
So do you think the electric bikes should be on the road?
Absolutely. All motor vehicles should be on the road. The whole purpose of
cycle. So they should ride on the road, they should have number plates, and you should have a licence.
You're incredibly vulnerable on a bicycle to any motor vehicle. Anybody who's driven any kind of motor vehicle, even a moped, knows that once an engine is driving it, it's much, much harder to
Also,
control.
particularly in the rain.
It's heavier and it hits you much harder.
I always ban my daughter from cycling. She cycles everywhere. And I always ban her from cycling in the rain because you just can't see. It's very hard to see cyclists in the rain.
Well, the things can be done about that, but a long campaign was made to create special lanes for bicycles, which is a totally rational thing to do. It has been immensely successful, particularly in the Netherlands, and it's now been negated by the legalisation of these monstrosities.
Okay, so what would we? So we want. I mean, you want them to be taken off the road.
Well, there are two things you need to do. First of all, close down all existing police forces and hire new ones made up of people who want to enforce the law.
Yes, well, I think
it's very simple, and it could be done.
Let's not make the best the enemy of the good, Peter. Here.
No, it's not. The police, as they currently exist, are worse than useless.
Okay,
they're actually actively worse than useless. They do more harm than good. Get rid of them. Hire a proper police force composed of people who are prepared to go out in the rain and are prepared to enforce the law rather than ignore it being broken, and then ban these things unless they have. I make a simple rule. I bet you wouldn't ride them if it was enforced. They all had to carry number plates, and you had to have a full driving license to ride them, and indeed insurance.
I'd be delighted to ride them under those conditions.
Very, very unusual among e-bike riders in that case.
This is The Last Fine and Hitchens, and we are going to take a break. And when we come back, I shall be asking why no one is vaccinating their children. We'll be back after this.
Get a free bet when you bet £5 every week of the Premier League season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction from Ladbrokes. And for extra Ladisfaction, here's the T's and C's garage style.
18 plus, 1st of September to 24th of May. Opt-in weekly. Selected Premier League markets. Match 1 free bet per week. Values vary. Restrictions and T&Cs apply. Daily odds boosts. T&Cs on ladbrokes.com. Gambleaware.org.
You are still, I hope, listening to Alas, Vine and Hitchens. I'm Sarah Vine.
She is. And I am still Peter Hitchens.
It's much chastised from our earlier conversation about e-bikes.
Yes, that was the expurgated, redacted part of the podcast. We're going to start charging extra for that soon.
There's a terrible outbreak of measles in London at the moment, in North London.
There is an outbreak of measles.
Very bad outbreak of measles, and it's because people have not been vaccinating their children. And this is something I really fail to understand. And I think two things have happened. One, there was all that silly nonsense about the MMR about 15 years ago. And I remember
it was much longer than 15 years ago.
Was it longer than 15 years ago?
It was much longer than 15 years ago. It was already, when I wrote the first thing I wrote about it, it was already dying down, and that was 25 years ago.
Okay, fine. But so we can talk about that. And then the other thing I think that's happened is that because of COVID, there's this sort of mad anti-vaxxer sort of conspiracy theory on the internet where they think that they're actually injecting nanobots into you or something like that. I just don't understand why it is that when parents are given a perfectly safe well-tested injection that will stop their children from getting a disease that might well kill them. I mean, another third reason why this is happening is because people have just forgotten how miserable these diseases were. Things like measles, children used to die from measles. They'd go deaf or they'd have encephalitis or problems like that. And it's a nasty illness. I was vaccinated to the hilt. I mean, I remember, and in those days, when I was at school, you used to get vaccinated the nurse would just come round and jab you, and there was no kind of consent or anything like that. So, we're all vaccinated. And I just think it's a really sad kind of retrograde step that people are so mad as to expose their children to a really unpleasant disease totally unnecessarily.
There's one thing I'm going to ask this question, and this is all it's all I'm going to say about this aspect of it. Have you seen anywhere a report on the area of northeast London where this reluctance to vaccinate is taking place? Have you seen any reporter on television or heard one on radio?
Yes,
or seen one on newspaper?
I was talking about it on Monday.
In that area. So what's the area like?
So it's actually Enfield, and the statistics are, because our lovely producer's done them, 64.3% of 5-year-olds in Enfield receive both doses of the MMR, which is measles, mumps and rubella, which is one of the lowest rates in the country, far below the 95% threshold that is needed to prevent an outbreak.
Okay, one or two other slightly heretical things to say about this, if I could.
Go on then.
Well, if you look me up on Wikipedia, you'll find straightforward lies in my entry, which I can do nothing about because I'm banned for life from Wikipedia.
No, I can change it
it's
for
not
you.
funny, actually. It's really quite serious that this thing which people rely on can tell flat lies about, and you can do absolutely nothing about it to correct it, try as you may. And it claims, for instance, that I opposed or condemned the mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine, which I never did. What I did was, at the time this was going on, I sympathised with those parents who were worried about it after the controversy because of
this was Andrew Wakefield,
a very
wasn't it?
prominent doctor had raised doubts about it. And if you're having, and as you will know, if you're having small children vaccinated and a prominent doctor's raised doubts about the vaccine, then it will worry you.
Of course.
And a lot of people said what we would like to do is we're not sure about them having all these vaccinations at the same time, have the vaccinations individually.
Yes.
What did the government do? It withdrew individual vaccinations.
They did.
So,
you had to get them privately.
you've got to have the MMR. And I tend to think that the secret of good government is to treat people with kindness and sympathy, and particularly parents of small children, and say, okay, we may think that you're daft, but you pay for the National Health Service. These are your children. You can have the individual vaccinations if you want. And I think if they'd done that, they would have got the full-scale immunity, which has eluded us pretty much ever since. And since then, there's been a lot of scare stories about vaccinations, which again, what you're doing is you're putting into yourself an unknown quantity. And it's not unreasonable for people to have doubts about it, which are not allayed by people shouting, "You must do this" in a Dalek voice.
Well, no,
I think if you want, I'm very much in favour of
disease.
I'm very much in favour of vaccination. I'm full of vaccinations since the BCG against tuberculosis I had to have, and I had the original scratch polio vaccination, which then had to have again when that turned out to be useless, and had the salt vaccine on the sugar lump. And all the others, I've got so many of them, I'm amazed my arm hasn't fallen off. But I'm not against vaccinations. No. And I got into terrible trouble during the COVID panic from all kinds of people who denounced me when I said that I'd had the COVID vaccinations, which I had because I thought at the time some of my family were living in a very remote location. I thought I would not be able to visit them for years if I didn't have it. That was the only reason I did it.
But it is absurd that you should be denounced for having a vaccination.
Is, anybody who enters discussions about vaccinations immediately gets into all kinds of trouble because what you say is misrepresented. Look for problems of this kind for people who have religious or other objections to it, or who, for some reason in their community, feel that they're. And instead of saying you must do this and being heavy-handed with it, be sympathetic, because until you've ever actually allowed someone to stick a needle into the arm of your tiny child, you don't know what a big decision that is. If the child falls ill, that wasn't your fault. You didn't authorize the illness to enter your child's body. But if you've said yes to a vaccination, And if for any reason it goes wrong, and actually some vaccinations do, if for any reason it goes wrong, then you
Then you
will
feel terrible guilt,
for
obviously.
the rest of your life.
Yeah,
You'll say,
completely.
there I was standing there. I could have prevented this, and I didn't. Treat people sympathetically
Yes.
and kindly and generously if they have doubts.
But
and
also-
you will get your immunity. Treat them as if they were subjects to be ordered about and annoying and stupid, and you won't get it.
But also, what about if you don't vaccinate your child and then it dies of measles?
Well, that is
It's exactly the same thing.
Can I make a small point about measles? And measles can be, in certain circumstances, a terrible disease. But if you look, as I once did, at the level of mortality from measles in this country, you'll find that it actually had fallen most precipitately before we introduced measles vaccination, because what really kept it from being a terrifying disease was the end of malnutrition and the end of people drinking filthy water and the end of people living in slums. Slum clearance, the welfare state, the fact that everybody got square meals all the time, hugely reduced its dangers.
Well, just because you're healthy.
And so I'm not. Let's not try and frighten people.
Well, no,
too
but I
much
just think.
either.
I mean, for example,
it can be very
it
bad.
can be, but it can make
I had it.
Yes, I mean, I think I had
it.
German
Everybody
measles.
in my generation had.
Do you know what German
my
measles
mother used
was?
to take us to gatherings of children to
Yes.
get these diseases.
Well, you go to like chickenpox parties. I've always been astonished that we don't vaccinate against chickenpox, because chickenpox, if you get it when you're pregnant, can cause serious birth problems, can't it?
I thought that was rubella.
I think it's chicken.
But you may be right. I don't know.
Chicken.
I had chickenpox. I've always
I had
always
everything.
remember this because it caused a great deal of more tension in an already tense family. I got chickenpox very mildly at the school I was doing, came home and then gave it to my brother, who was at another school, who got it very badly, and he never forgave me.
Well, I got chickenpox and I gave it to my father, who got shingles.
Yeah, but that's the other thing.
Which is very unpleasant.
I think they are moving towards
I think they
introducing
are
a
moving
chickenpox
to,
vaccine.
Yeah.
But I think it's rubella that is the grave danger during pregnancy.
Maybe you're right. Okay, probably right.
Known
Is that
as-
German
known as
measles?
German
That's
measles,
right.
measles.
Yes, because I had German measles. I remember that. I definitely had that.
We all tried very hard to get German measles.
Yeah, I think
when
I
was
did
a
have
child.
German measles. I seem to remember that. Andrew Wakefield did a huge amount of damage. I can remember when I was vaccinating my children, getting in a total panic about this, and actually asking my doctor at the time whether there was any basic, because I thought, I'll just go and ask the doctor what the doctor thinks. And the doctor said, I would not give the MMR to my children. I would give them individual vaccines.
Really?
And that the doctor said that on account of the fact that apparently some of the vaccines contain too much lead or something like that, and that sent me down a whole other rabbit hole.
There are interesting things which vaccines do contain, but again, I'm generally in favour of them. I think they do an immense amount of good. But I just think the bossiness of the authorities when confronted with people who are hesitant is the worst way of achieving.
Yes,
what
but
they want to
I
achieve.
think it's a sort of, I think, there's a parallel with COVID, isn't there? Which is that, people who refuse to have the vaccine, I mean, COVID was obviously much more, actually just a much more dangerous virus. But, it is a public health issue at a certain point, As an individual, you have to say, am I going to just think about myself, or am I going to actually take responsibility for someone who might get this disease and might be very, very ill with it?
I'm just not going to enter into any discussion about that at all.
That's very unlike
There's
you.
No, it isn't. I do it increasingly. I will never discuss the transgender issue.
Oh, okay.
Because it just there's nothing, there's no good that will come out of it, and all that will happen is that I will be misrepresented by somebody for anything that I say. So it's simply just not to talk about it.
Okay. Well, should we do some letters then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's the end of that then. Vaccinate your kids.
Well, I said quite a lot, I think, but just not. That's it. I mean, I've spent so long being lied about this. It's just.
Well, I think you need to sort out your Wikipedia entry.
You can't. I was banned from Wikipedia for being flippant towards it's like the Ku Klux Klan. They have all kinds of imperial wizards and people who descend from the sky on you,
Grand wikis,
and ban you. And if you protest about being banned or say can I have a hearing, they double ban you.
But why can't
I'm
you just
banned
get
for
somebody
life.
else to edit your Wikipedia entry?
That would be a breach of the ban. They would immediately come.
But if they're lying about you,
if anybody touched my Wikipedia entry, who was obviously a proxy for me, then they'd get banned too.
I've actually never read my Wikipedia entry.
Well, there you are then.
Because I just think it's better not to know what they say about me. Yeah, I've never read it. I never will. I didn't write it, so I don't know. It's nothing to do with me. Someone else has made it up. Dear Sarah.
Maybe unwise. Since you have facility to change it, you might be allowing all kinds of stuff about you to be floating around.
Yes.
Untruly.
Well,
take a look if I were you.
Dear Sarah, after hearing about your bullying experience as a teenager, I felt that I had to write. I think the advice given that you were bringing on the bullying yourself and that you should change your appearance was wrong. I was also surprised that Peter agreed with this advice, as he has always questioned the majority, even if he's the only person saying so. If you weren't doing anything wrong, why conform to these insecure girls who were clearly afraid of being singled out themselves? I have to ask, when you made these changes, did life get better for you? Sometimes, once you are a target for bullies, no matter how hard you try to fit in, people will still find excuses to be mean and cruel. They had the problem, not you. Regards, Emma. Thank you, Emma. No, actually, life didn't get better for me, to be honest, because then there's always another obstacle.
I thought you said that it did.
Well, I mean, the bullying stopped.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't sort of miraculous cure to all of my problems.
That wasn't it? Stop.
Yes, it was.
Well, then if it works, if you stop, that's a major achievement, stopping bullying.
Yes, I don't know, because then I suppose then you become something that perhaps you become a person that you perhaps aren't really, if you know what I mean. It's a sort of people-pleasy thing, isn't it, really?
Or is it just that we all have to cope with the fact that human beings are hideously conformist, and that if you want to have any kind of individual freedom, you have to. It's often better to conform in the small things, so that you can get away with being.
We see you're very good at being nonconformist, and I think that for years and years and years I was terrible at it, and I've got quite good at it recently. In fact, I think I'm pretty good at it these days, but it took me a very long time to sort of not care what people thought about me.
It's not caring, is it? It's caring, but
not minding.
Placing a limit on
yes, placing a limit on how much they have agency over your life.
Of course you'll care. No, anyone who says they're not, but everybody cares. But I just think if someone is having their life made a misery in the way in which yours is being made a misery, and you're offered a simple plan of action which stops that happening, I can't really disagree with that.
Yes, although
I can't stand and say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. You should have stood up to them." What would you have done?
In order to sort of survive, I became a cool girl, if you know what I mean. And that led to all sorts of unintended outcomes, such as not being very good at maths anymore and skipping class and, getting into trouble and smoking cigarettes because I was trying to fit in with all these cool kids. So there were some behaviours that I then adopted that weren't really me at all, but that they were part of what was expected of a person who was not
like
being
Clueless.
Exactly, or Heathers, and and I started getting into trouble at school, having never been in trouble at school, having always been girly swat and top of the class at everything. I suddenly wasn't anymore, and that was the price that I paid. But on the other hand, I wasn't miserable, so I guess maybe that was a price worth paying.
Are you sorry?
Am I sorry?
Yeah. Are you sorry that your maths?
Do you know what? I am really sorry about the maths, because I was quite good at maths and actually I really liked it. And I particularly like things like algebra. But of course, the second you skip a class in maths, that's it. It's a very unforgiving subject, and you can't just drop it like that and then take it up again. You've got to keep the building blocks, otherwise it all becomes incomprehensible. So yeah, that was a bit of a shame.
But you're never going to be senior wrangler at Cambridge, were you?
No.
Not from St Bede's.
No. Moving on.
Duncan from Plymouth wants to ask me, because he once read that I hated football, about this loathing. He says that growing up in his small family in Plymouth, it was indistinguishable from being an English patriot and being a football fan, and it was considered almost blasphemy if you did not like the sport. As someone who hated it, I had to play along. So he wants to ask me, since I don't share the love, so when did this passionate love for football turn to this passionate patriotism? Well, it's a good question. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to play football.
Absolutely.
Very badly. If I have, though, I must say that I didn't like being made to play it at school, which was in the days when the ball was made of leather and in Devon.
Extremely painful.
From which Duncan writes, it was usually soaking wet and we played in mud. So if the ball hit you in the face, it could spoil your whole afternoon. And I remember that well. They're rather different from the strange plastic beach balls with which they play now. But yes, nothing against playing. It is the adulation and the ludicrous enthusiasm, the way people shout about it, and also particularly the way in which major New Labour figures always have to support a football team. It's
to be honest,
I don't believe
I
them.
completely agree with you on
don't
this.
believe them.
I have to say, I mean, I have a son who is obsessed with football, and that's absolutely fine. But, people will say to me, what team do you support? I don't support any team. I mean, I don't care. I literally, honestly, have no view.
I think
the best team, can they win?
I think that if you could see if there existed on film anywhere a film of a pagan sacrifice before Christianity came to the world, you might see in the crowds something similar to what you see at football games. It seems to me to have the outlines of
yes, it has
of
it's an outlet,
in
isn't it? Yeah.
There's a lot of violence in
Yes.
it. Though, of course, everyone pretends that it's bad, that they shouldn't be being violent. Obviously, it's part of what, particularly, it seems
part of the experience.
Top-level football is full of violence and cheating, which goes largely unpunished.
Yeah.
And I find it actually fantastically boring to watch. I've never seen, and listen carefully to what I say, I've never seen a goal being scored, either at a live football game or on television.
Well,
I've never seen a goal being scored because I've always fallen asleep or my mind has wandered before it happens. I've watched an awful lot of the modern English football as well. It's fantastic, isn't it? So they play not to lose; they don't play to win.
Yeah.
So the whole time is spent kicking the ball to each other, avoiding doing anything with it in case someone scores a goal. It's so tedious.
I am completely the opposite. I actually quite enjoy watching the actual football, but what I cannot stand is the stuff that comes with it, which is the songs about people's girlfriends and all the rudeness and the shouting and that sort of awful man noise that men make when they're in those environments of loud grunting and then all the sort of gestures. That is the stuff that I really hate.
You're a girl,
but.
So you would hate that.
Yes, I find it really vulgar. I'm sorry, I know.
But I'm a bloke and I hate it.
Okay, so
that's why I'm considered seriously disordered.
And I just don't understand. Why can't it just be like tennis?
Well, because that's not the point of it. The point of it is tennis, as far as I can see, is the modern English version.
Cricket.
Tennis is the modern English version of the rain dance, and its purpose is to bring rain to Wimbledon. But so that also has a pagan content. But football, I remember once a wet evening in Liverpool where I went to Anfield, I think it was, and before the days of sitting down, when everybody surged forward all the time, it was very tense, a great potentiality for violence and overwroughtness and unpleasantness going on all the time. And I thought, well, this isn't for me.
Well, no. A lot of it sometimes is just organised fighting. I mean, I remember going to Rome. I have a friend who is a girl who is obsessed with football and she loves football. And so we went to Rome for some game. I think it was England versus Italy, and I think it might have been 98. I think it was where someone cried. I can't remember. One of the footballers cried. Anyway,
don't they all cry now?
They would know, but I think if this person cried, anyway, it was a really boring game, really, really boring game, and I think it must have been about 98 or something like that. Anyway, someone who likes football will tell us. And we went to this football game, and obviously we were the away fans, and we came out of the stadium after the game, and there were just gangs of Roman fans, Italy fans, on motorcycles looking for English fans. And actually we got cornered, and it was only because I spoke fluent Italian and explained to them that I was Italian that we weren't sort of targeted by these lunatics, and they were all off their heads on some form. I don't know what they were taking, but they were completely wired, and it really was quite frightening.
There is that too.
Yeah, and I remember growing up in Italy.
Do you remember? Can I just interrupt?
The ultras.
Yeah.
Which were the sort of the super fans, and Milan had these ultras fans who were basically bankrolled by Berlusconi, and he used to pay for them to travel, on private jets and all this kind of stuff, and give them loads of drugs, and they would be sent into games to just cause trouble, to just create fights.
Do you remember the Heysel Stadium episode?
I certainly do. Yeah.
But the thing was, it was quite clear that people had died.
Yeah.
And yet they carried on playing the game.
I know.
And I could never get over that. I thought, surely the thing you must do is stop it. But the game was considered so important, I don't know why, that they carried on playing while people were dying.
No, it's extraordinary.
It seems to me to sum up what is wrong with football as a cult and as a thing given.
Well, I mean, there were all those football gangs, weren't there, in the 70s and 80s?
To some extent, that's
hooligans and all of that nonsense. But the thing is, it's still there, and it's still very misogynistic at its core. And I think it's okay not to like it. And I think, Duncan makes a good point. Why is it considered to be unpatriotic?
Well, because people have
not to take an interest in football.
People have no true basis for patriotism anymore. They're told to admire a country and they can't admire it.
So they admire their team instead.
So they admire football instead. It's very hard to admire Britain as it currently is, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yes, I suppose so.
You're reduced to sort of admiring its past mainly. It's very, very hard to look at it and say, gosh, I'm really proud of this country. Say.
Yes, no, fair enough. Next question. Hello. I wanted to ask both of you if you thought that the Second Amendment, i.e. the right to bear arms in America, should be adopted over here, since the police are so useless, or do you think our drug-crazed populace would just burst into one massacre after another, like in the US? I think the answer is the latter, don't you?
Well, as it happens, the Second Amendment is copied from the English Bill of Rights, which gave, at the time it was written, Protestants, such as I am, the right to bear arms. And it's still part of
Has it actually been repealed?
Still part of our constitution. Now they did amend it so that it allowed non-Protestants to have it. And you could in this country buy a gun at any ironmonger and ammunition until 1920. And if you read the Sherlock Holmes stories, you'll find that Holmes and Watson frequently go out packing heat. The laws in this country, the gun laws in this country, used to make Texas look effeminate. Yeah. In 1920, and I've written about this in a fascinating book called Brief History of Crime. In 1920, they began the process of taking away the freedom of the British subject to bear arms. But the thing is that it wasn't the freedom to bear arms that makes America as violent as it is. It's the fact that America has many, many strands of violence in itself, not least long periods of lawlessness in the West, and also the legacy of slavery in the South. And the significance of it there is wholly different. I would cite, though, interesting thing, the wife of a friend of mine was a prosecutor in the state of Virginia, and they lived in Washington, D.C., and she prosecuted quite heavy crime cases, and she was constantly a little nervous of meeting some of the people she prosecuted who'd got out. And when she was in the state of Virginia, she was allowed to carry a gun in her handbag, and she was much reassured by it. When she was in Washington, D.C., she was strictly banned by law from doing so. She was much more worried. So for her, the gun ban was a nuisance. Yeah. There is a body, or was a body in the United States called Second Amendment Sisters, who merged love for the freedom to bear arms with feminism, which embarrassed the liberal left no end, and has always seemed to me to be quite funny as a result. But no, I think in general, I have no desire to own or use a gun. And I'm very glad that at the moment it's not necessary. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, we do need a police force in this country. And that means getting rid of the one that we have. Amusingly, on that side of things, the police in one incident in East London, I think 1912, borrowed guns from the population. They actually stopped passers-by and said, "If you've got a gun, we can borrow it," because they were facing an armed gang of anarchists pulled up in a house nearby. They actually borrowed guns from people. That was the situation. But Switzerland is another example. Everybody not really can, but has to keep weapons in his house. And yeah, they are Swiss. The Swiss are actually quite tough. And is there very much gun crime in Switzerland? Actually, no. The variable is not the freedom to own or carry a weapon. The variable is something else, and if you're
it's the level of criminality, actually, isn't
and
it?
of course the levels of drug taking as well. I have to say.
It's the level of criminality. I mean, to be honest, I think the criminals in this country seem to manage perfectly well with knives and machetes. I don't think we need to give them guns as well.
They used to manage without those, actually.
Do you want to do this one because I think it may be related to a train?
A train-related question.
A train-related question. Our cup runneth over.
Right. Okay. Well, this is from Martin Wheatley. He says he's just listened to the podcast the first time ever. I hope he will keep returning, Martin. And he's much enjoyed it. Driving a steam train is an experience offered by many heritage railways, which I experienced when I was 70. So there is hope for me at 74. There was a requirement to wear a boiler suit, which I thought were for hardline feminists, and stout footwear. And
three.
with my companion, we each took a turn at firing and driving the length of the watercress line. Apparently, the boiler suit has not survived because he tried to remove moss from the roof of his bungalow, fell off, broke his ankle, and had to have the suit cut off him by the paramedics. So much for that. Well, I'm not sure where this leads, actually. I was quite recently removing moss from my roof. Fortunately, survived the experience. But yes, if indeed I get the chance, I will see if I can.
There's been exciting
drive a
train
steam
news
train.
this week, though, Peter. There is actual, genuine, exciting train news. And because Wales is getting 7 new train stations.
Railway stations.
Sorry, railway stations, pardonnez-moi. There will be 7 new station stops on the Welsh line.
I'm of course pleased
Not
when
full time.
any new station is
Yes.
open, but I would point out that Wales has probably, in my lifetime, lost something like 700
Yes.
stations closed by lunatics, and each of these new stations which are open will cost about 500
Yes, they could
times
just open
as
the old
much
ones.
to build as they would have cost to build
Yeah.
originally. So that it just illustrates the stupidity
Of the
closing
Labour
it all
government.
down in the first
But
place.
they could just reopen those stations. I have to say, I don't care how many stations Wales has. The trains are just terrible, with or without however many stations they need. I mean, you basically get to Cardiff and then you just can't get anywhere else. I go quite a lot to Wales by train, and it's an absolute nightmare. I mean, you can end up sitting for hours and hours and hours and hours on end at Cardiff station, questioning your life choices. So yes, anyway, but they're going to be exciting new trains, going to exciting new train railway stations in
They
Wales.
have rebuilt part of the line between Oxford and Cambridge, on which I used to travel years ago. They rebuilt part of it as far as Bletchley, but there are no trains around it. And this has been going for months and months and months. Very expensive new line.
Why have they rebuilt the line?
Because the management want to introduce driver-only trains, and the unions say, particularly after the recent events at Huntingdon, that they don't think that's a good idea.
No.
So nice new trains, nice new railway line,
Yeah.
no service.
Perfect. I mean,
It's fascinating.
Absolutely brilliant.
This is modern Britain for you. Here we are. Perhaps we need a
I think-
19th Amendment.
Yes. I think you should become
The
Minister
right
for
to
Trains.
travel by train.
I think that's all we have time for, sadly. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out this week's reading watch list and share the books, TV and films you think we might want to read or watch. For that or anything else, you can email us, alas@dailymail.co.uk. Got it right this time. You can leave a comment on Spotify or even send a voice note on WhatsApp to the number 07796 657 512, and please start your message with the word alas.
Get a free bet when you bet £5 every week of the Premier League season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction from Ladbrokes. And for extra Ladisfaction, here's the T's and C's garage style.
18 plus, 1st of September to 24th of May. Opt-in weekly. Selected Premier League markets. Match 1 free bet per week. Values vary. Restrictions and T&Cs apply. Daily odds boosts. T&Cs on ladbrokes.com. GambleAware.org.